Welcome to another episode of All Access. It's a gorgeous, beautiful summer day here in New York City, and I just got back from DC, and a lot of exciting things happened this week that I want to share with you. So let's just get into it. So as usual, I kind of put together my thoughts here. The biggest thing that happened this week is after much waiting, we ended up releasing Core Wallet. This is a new wallet from us, Ava Labs, and it gets DeFi right. This is our mission: is to bring you the best of technology. You knew this. We brought you the best of platforms in a world where people take many, many, many years to make a lot of noise and not delivers anything at all. In a world where there are a lot of projects that just constantly promise things in the future. I told you that we had built the world's fastest platform, the one with the highest capacity, the shortest time to finality, and that changed the entire space of distributed systems. And I gave you guys, my team at least gave the world the Avalanche platform. Now we're going to bring you a proper wallet experience. It's not going to be what you're used to. It's going to be very different. And we just released the very first iteration. And the way to think of this should be your portal to all digital assets. We're not trying to be just a little wallet. We're not like everybody else's this, that, and the other. This is really a portal. It's really your access to the rest of the universe of valuable things on blockchains. Does a lot of things and looks cool for one. That's a good start. It's very, very important for the wallet experience to be good. And this thing looks, I think, fairly slick. And so what does it do? It supports a hell of a lot of things from the get-go. We delayed it because I wanted to support Bitcoin. So it supports Avalanche itself. It supports all of the Avalanche default chains. No, that's not true. It supports the C chain. The X and the P support is not ready yet. It's not in there yet. It's not released yet, rather. But it's in the works. That's coming as well. So it supports the C chain. It supports subnets. And it supports all kinds of assets. If you ever dealt with MetaMask, as many people have, you know how miserable that experience is. You buy tokens. I get so many messages. I think I swapped tokens, but then they disappeared. Well, they didn't disappear. It's just MetaMask is not showing them to you. I bought an NFT. Where do I see it? Well, it's a hell of an experience from that point on. You are beholden to other additional tools. If you're using MetaMask, you have to go to other people's websites to see what you've got. That's inherently wrong. So the Ethereum folks, I love them, but they kind of just went off the deep end, and they started building these tools. They started doing things that direct that incredible user community into the hands of other people who exploit them. It hurts me to say this, but that's what's going on. So to see your NFTs, you have to go to a marketplace. Why? Why do you have to go? It's your NFT. Why are you beholden to a marketplace? What the heck is it's the marketplace? Then why should you trust the marketplace? Why are you connecting to a marketplace? So all of those are absolutely horrible. And they're not just technological differences. I hope you understand the deep philosophical differences between the Avalanche way of doing things, which is users first, blockchain first, crypto native first, and the other things that you're seeing, all of that proliferation that you're seeing of layer twos, etc. So these are all ways of delivering people into the hands of others. And we don't believe in that. We believe that the platform should see the users through. And the core wallet experience should be similar. You own these assets, you get to see them, they are yours, and you should have the means to do whatever the heck you want with them from within your wallet experience. So the core wallet supports dApps, it supports NFTs, it supports bridging, something that I'm going to come back to. It supports subnets, and it's going to be supporting even more stuff. So we decided to do a soft launch. So I didn't make a huge song and dance about it. As with any new software, you want to, first shake out the bugs and so forth. And in the few days that it's been out, we have received 0 high priority bugs. It's been absolutely smooth sailing on that front. We have received some bugs. Sometimes you get a double scroll bar on the side, I gather. There are cases where I think there was one case where somebody was getting a black screen under a certain circumstance. Those kinds of things happened, and we are fixing them, or we fixed them, or fixing them. The most important or the most common feature request that we got so far was that people want Firefox to be supported. It currently supports Chrome, and so we will get to that as well. And of course, there's many other more advanced features so that are planned. So Ethereum support, of course, being one of the more important ones. That's definitely coming in the works. So here we are. Let's talk a little bit about what you can do with it today. And one of the most important things you can do with Core that you cannot do with anyone else is you can securely bridge your Bitcoin and put it to work on Avalanche. If you're a Bitcoiner, if you hold any Bitcoin whatsoever, if you've read anything about Bitcoin or have bought into the whole Bitcoin mindset at any point in your life, you know what it's about. Bitcoin is a store of value. That's its mission in life. And as a store of value, most people are used to buying and holding Bitcoin, so much so that it has a special name. In crypto, we call it hodling, HODL, and not holding. So a lot of people hodl their Bitcoin. That's perfectly fine. You can do that, and you sit there. It's kind of like you can be a dragon with your gold hoard in the back, right? That's perfectly fine thing to do. Nothing wrong with that. But there are many, many, many cases in life where you might want to do something better when you're in possession of something valuable. So what are those things? Well, let's take a hypothetical scenario. What's a hypothetical scenario? Well, you might be pressed because of financial circumstances. You might just need cash. You had the foresight to buy Bitcoin. There's so many people in the Bitcoin community who had the foresight to get into that community, who wanted to hold on to their Bitcoin, but due to life circumstances, happens to all of us, they needed liquidity, they needed cash, and so they had to sell. So when you need cash, you can go and sell. Suppose you're holding, and I'll make up some numbers, just round numbers. Most people don't hold this much. Let's say you're holding, say 10 Bitcoin. You needed 5 Bitcoins worth of cash. Your father has a medical operation, whatever, something happens, and you need to pay some bills. You need 5 Bitcoins worth of cash. Simple thing to do. You hodled all those 10. You can go and sell the 5 and then use it. That's fine. That's something you can do. You probably have to pay taxes on the Bitcoin you sold as well, and then the tax accounting becomes a nightmare. And I will not pretend to give you any suggestions. All I'm going to say is you also incur a substantial tax penalty when you sell your Bitcoin. In general, you don't want to sell your valuable assets. It's a hard-capped asset. Lots of people love it, and so there's a reason why we hold Bitcoin. And so here's another thing you might want to do. What you might want to do when you have cash is you show your Bitcoin as collateral to someone, and using your Bitcoin as collateral, you take out a loan for some period of time. Okay, so these are over-collateralized loans. What's a good example of this? Well, in the hypothetical scenario where you had 10 Bitcoin, you might decide to do this. Instead of selling the 5, you put up the 10 Bitcoin and say, hey, I want to show you this as my collateral. This, you, the smart contract, can have this as collateral. And I want 5 Bitcoins worth of cash right now. Without selling it, I will come back and pay you back. And then you go and pay whatever your hospital bill was, 5 Bitcoins worth of cash, and 100K worth of cash, and you give it to them. And over time, as you build up that amount, you can then pay back your loan and get back your 10 Bitcoins worth. If you pay back a little bit, then you can release various portions of it. There's of course a liquidation price. If the amount of collateral you hold is not sufficient to cover the loan you took, you will get liquidated. That's something that one needs to pay attention to when one is using one of these lending services. Now, this kind of lending service is at the heart of what is happening in DeFi. And Aave is a very good example of them. of these services. It pioneered this area. Very, very successful product. It's a blue chip DeFi product, and a close partner of Avalanche, the very first big DeFi application. Maybe not the very first, but one of the first, probably like second or third big DeFi application to launch on Avalanche, and one that brought in many others, to the point where that for everything there exists on Ethereum, there's a counterpart in Avalanche, and in fact quite a few of those counterparts are offering better service, like Platypus, compared to their counterparts on Ethereum. Just as an aside, Platypus is offering stablecoin swaps that are very efficient, for example. Anyhow, going back to our story, you could have hodled and sold and incurred the tax bills and the pain, or you can borrow against your Bitcoin. So that's something that you can now do. You can take your Bitcoin, carry it over the Avalanche bridge, and once it's an Avalanche, then you can use that Bitcoin as collateral in all things DeFi on Avalanche. This is an amazing thing to do. Everything that Ethereum gave you that exists now on Avalanche, all of those DeFi Legos, now you have access to them through the core wallet. And I cannot stress how important this is. And I cannot wait to see how the Bitcoin community take this up. I am curious how long it will take them to figure out this new universe of DeFi. To be sure, it's not easy to navigate this universe. To be sure, it's not, it's hodling is so much easier, and that's what people get told to do. But this universe is so compelling, and there's so many opportunities for earning yields. So normally when there is a lending service, on the other side of the lending service, there's a banker, there's somebody with capital who facilitates that loan. It's probably some Wall Street dude in a slick suit. It's like they're not very far from where I live. Very different, but I chose to live close by because we do work with them, and we are trying to move them onto better rails. But those folks, they are typically the ones who provide capital. On Avalanche, with an application, with a lending application like Aave, you can be on either side of this equation. You could use your Bitcoins as collateral and take out loans, as I described, or you can come in from the other side and you can use your Bitcoins as liquidity to people who want to borrow Bitcoin. If you have USDT or USDC, you could use that, and that would work well with the example I gave before. So we all could pool our resources, and in fact we do. We pool our resources into a lending platform. People come in with their valuable asset BTC, and they borrow against it. They borrow USDT or USDC against the BTC.B that they brought over. So pretty darn cool thing to do. There are people out there who want to borrow Bitcoin. They want to do whatever they want to do. They perhaps want to do leveraged trades. And there are many other examples like this. You want to take you only have, I don't know, most people don't have that much Bitcoin. You only have, let's say, one Bitcoin, but you are certain that Bitcoin will go up, and you want to expose yourself to you want to trade with leverage. Well, then you can do the opposite. You can come in with cash, borrow Bitcoins, and other people can use their Bitcoin to provide liquidity to you. So this is an amazing set of Legos that work together. There's so much more. I cannot do it justice during just a single podcast. And maybe what I should do is one of these days I'll bring in an expert and have them go through various DeFi operations and describe how they do this whole thing. I call it degenning, so there are lots of degens out there who are extremely good at identifying financial opportunities. It isn't just for Wall Street, and we are living at a time when the capital in this space is being provided by normal people. There's a bunch of it, substantial from any individual's perspective. I think, what do we have? We have $500 billion worth of resources in crypto, but it's not yet overrun with actual Wall Street firms. So it's not trillions of dollars yet. Those days will come, I assure you. And there are some very well understood obstacles for why that money isn't quite here yet. But we're working on solving those, and that's the subject of many other podcasts, both in the past and future to come. But we're going to get there. But at the moment, there's an opportunity to earn yield on your Bitcoin, either lending or and you can also do this borrowing, etc. So come check it out. This is a new set of things you can do that you couldn't do before. And once the coins are in Avalanche, they move super fast. It's not like this 6 confirmations, wait 1 hour kind of a thing. It's instantaneous. Avalanche has finality within a second. And so you move the coins, you click something and it appears like it's a website. It's not. You're interacting with the blockchain, and operations just complete, super fast, move on, and you can get in and out of positions. You can get in and out of liquidity. If you are on the liquidity provisioning side with Aave, I'm not an expert on Aave by any means, but I believe that you can take your coins out at any time that you like. So these systems are really convenient, and I don't know what banks you use, but compared to my bank, it's just they're so much better in every way, and provide much better yield at the moment. When the big money comes, the yield opportunities will diminish, right? So it's a lot harder then. But at the moment, they are trying to attract users and capital, and to do that, they're providing some yields. So check it out; it's amazing, and the whole experience is super, super slick. And these assets are coming over the bridge. I'll talk about the bridge later. At any time that you like, so I understand the fascination that Bitcoiners have with Bitcoin security. It's a very well understood system, has enormous amounts of hash power protecting it, huge amounts of electricity going into it to protect it from other miners who might attack it, etc. So if at any time you decide, okay, well, I've done what I wanted to do, I want to go back to Bitcoin, you can, right? It's less than a second on the Avalanche side, and then a few confirmations later, you're back on Bitcoin. You settle back on Bitcoin if you want, and then you go back to your Bitcoin life, hodl there, or do whatever you might want to do on that side. So it's entirely decentralized. There are no custodians, and that's a very, very nice situation to be in. So check it out. It's cool. What else can you do? Oh, okay. Let's talk a little bit about this Bitcoin bridge. It's unlike every other bridge you know about, and unlike every other bridge you've heard of. The Harmony bridge got hacked yesterday. They were running a multi-sig bridge, an on-chain multi-sig bridge. So that's it's a chain facilitated by some number of gatekeepers. They had 5, I believe, any 2 of which could move the funds. I don't understand why anybody would use such a thing. It's so badly designed. As soon as I heard 2 out of 5, I just as a technologist, you just go, well, who in their right mind would do that? So you typically want to replicate so that you can remain live and tolerate some number of faults. And you typically require a threshold, so replicate to 5, so that some number of that 5 could be down, and yet you can still remain live. And you require a threshold so that you are secure, that you cannot be compromised unless all, whatever your threshold number is, that's 2 in their case, all 2 of those entities are compromised. It turns out, I believe that they had 2 entities on the same machine. So one compromise took both down. I'm not really sure about that part. Even if not, 2 out of 5 doesn't make sense. You hear 2 out of 5, you run the other way. These people don't understand distributed systems. So 4 out of 5, that's sensible. You got 5 people, and one of them could be down, and still the system continues to operate. The remaining 4 have to all be compromised simultaneously for that bridge to be compromised. That's them. They ended up doing a 2 out of 5, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This space is full of people who don't know what they're doing. And if there is a meta lesson or a meta takeaway from any of these podcasts, I hope it's that with Ava Labs, there are some people, some adults in the room who actually know what they're doing. This is not how you build systems. In general, I understand why they did it, and the reason why you want to keep a low threshold is if the threshold is high, then you have to have that many transactions on chain, and if you have that many transactions on chain, well, then you've got a bit of an issue. Because they're expensive. So let's say Ethereum is charging, I don't know, $100 per transaction, and you want to do a 4 out of 5. Well, it's going to cost cost $400 to do a bridge operation. That was the thing that they were trying to avoid, I guess. But now they lost $100 million. I think this is kind of a fatal blow. And it's very, very sad to see this all preventable. All it required was just some set of people who knew what they were doing. So let me tell you about our bridge. So I went on a tangent there. We use an entirely different technology. It's an Intel SGX bridge. It's an application. It's a special application that runs in an enclave that's provided by Intel chips for the last 5.5, maybe 6 years or so. It's underutilized. It's a bit of kit, a bit of technology that's been there for quite a few years now. It's not used for all that much. I believe it's used for BitLocker. I believe it's used for a few other applications, but quite a few people don't even realize it's there. And this technology allows the chip to do something that until SGX applications came along was not possible to do. What is that something? Well, it allows a programmer to place a bit of code inside an enclave inside the chip where the code executes with integrity and confidentiality. What does that mean? That means the following. That means that no one can change the flow of execution of the code placed in the enclave. Okay, well, let me put it in more accessible terms. Normally, when I run something on a regular Intel chip outside the enclave, right, on the normal parts of the chip, the execution proceeds as it does, but I can stop it at any time. I can change register values inside my CPU at any time. I can change the flow of execution, and for example, I can make the code jump over a particular check. Suppose, and I've done this one, when I was younger, you take a game, you want to play it, but there's a check in the code that checks for whether or not you have a license. Well, then, when you're a teenager, you go and patch that bit of code, you jump over that bit, and then you resume execution. You can stop it with the debugger, change the program counter to go beyond the check, and then you resume, and bang, you're playing whatever Commodore 64 game that I was playing at the time. That's something you can do with regular chips. The other thing you can do with regular chips, when the program's executing and it's keeping, let's say, a database, high scores, you can go into the high score table and you can just put any number you want. Right? It's there, it's in memory. And when you bring up the debugger, you change it, then you resume, and you're the top guy on that game. Not going to mention the name, but I don't want to date myself, but that's the kind of thing that I used to do. So with the SGX technology, all of these misbehaviors are ruled out. So when the code is executing, you cannot change the program counter or any of the register values. So the flow of execution is guaranteed. If I give you some code and it has some check in it, and you're executing my code inside your enclave, you can't skip over that check. It's just not possible. That's what Intel SGX provides. The other thing, that's integrity. That means that if there is some code, you either run the code as is or you stop running it. Okay, so there's no in between. You can't modify it, and that is, you can't modify it while it's in the enclave, while it's executing. And the other thing you cannot do is you cannot look at the memory contents. Everything that is going outside the enclave on the chip is encrypted. So when the chip is writing to memory, everything is encrypted so that high score table is completely encrypted with a key that's only known to the very core of the chip. So you can't just go to memory and change contents, because if you did, then that's fine, that's great. Except your encryption would not, you can't encrypt with you don't have the key that the chip has. Anything else you put there will be recognized by the chip as junk, and your computation will do the appropriate thing, which is say there's a memory problem here. So that high score meddling thing that I talked about is not possible with SGX. Now there are other things you could do, and SGX has one additional feature that is amazing, that rules them out. The other thing you can do is, before you launch the application, you could go change its binary. This is something we used to. First, you play with the debugger and change the code, and when you're sick and tired of doing it every time, you would, back in the old days with regular code, you would go and patch the binary, and then when you bring it up, it just jumps over the check. So what Intel SGX provides is something called attestation. So you bring up the code, and it starts running it. And remote entities have the ability to ask you and say, hey, what code are you running inside your enclave? And then your chip computes a hash over the code inside the enclave and says, hey, the hash of the code inside that was loaded into my enclave is 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if 1, 2, 3, 4, the code, the program with the hash 1, 2, 3, 4 is what I gave you, it's great. But if you change the binary so as to jump over those crucial checks to add Byzantine behavior into your program or whatnot, then your hash will be different. You can change it to your heart's content. No one can stop you. But once you load it into the enclave, then it's out of your hands. It's inside the chip. And when I ask your chip, yo, what have you got over there? Your chip responds with, here's the hash. And it will be 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'll be like, I don't trust you. That is not the program that I would like to interact with. I would like to interact with 1, 2, 3, 4. So what does that all mean? Sorry about getting a little bit wonky there. I'm trying not to be. I'm trying to be a little bit more accessible on these podcasts. But and actually, that's the question. I should probably do one of these. I'll do a poll on Twitter. I'd like to hear back from you. I can be much more technical, or I could be a little bit more accessible. I don't know where to draw the line. I'll seek guidance from all of you on Twitter. Okay, so what's the deal with the bridge that we built? Well, it uses this technology, and it uses this technology to do one crucial thing. And that crucial thing is to make the bridge immune to a number of attacks. And this bridge application, this bridge instantiation, is such that it can do something that many other bridges cannot do. Namely, it's immune to insider threats. So even someone who's operating on top of the bridge, even someone with access to the bridge code, will be unable to get access to the keys inside the enclave. And as such, even if somebody wanted to do something nefarious, they would not be able to change the bridge code and then get access to the keys and do anything nefarious. So this is what allows our bridge to be supremely cheap, because on the source and destination chains, you only need one transaction. You need a transaction in and a transaction out on the destination. So that's why it's so cheap. We don't have to cut corners like some other people did and lost money on. It's correct by construction. That whole setup is such that the bridge funds are secured inside the enclave, and the bridge code, if modified, there are wardens that check that the bridge has the correct hash. And what else is there to say about the bridge? So it's fast. Oh, it's fast because it's using Avalanche on one side. That's where the speed comes from. It's as fast as a single transaction on the source chain. So if you're using Bitcoin, you'll have to wait for the latency of a Bitcoin transaction. So I think we're waiting for six confirmations. Getting funds in takes 6 confirmations. That's normal for Bitcoin. You guys are used to it. On Ethereum, we wait for some number of transactions as well. I forget how many. However long that takes, people loved using it. And the UI UX shows you exactly where the delays are. You typically wait for the blockchain to transfer the funds, and once they're at the address that is controlled by the bridge, then they are released immediately on Avalanche. And as you know, on Avalanche, transactions proceed at speed of finalization of 1 second, so it's super fast. So this is great. Just try using it. It's really, really cool. You don't need to do KYC AML to transfer your BTC funds because they are your funds. There's no custodian. There's nobody who is holding your funds for you. I should mention this. The wallet does a very cool trick. It uses your Bitcoin key on both Bitcoins. It uses the same key, I should say, on both the Bitcoin side and the Avalanche side. So that's an interesting thing that it can do, whereby it ends up moving funds to a Bitcoin address. It looks like a Bitcoin address, and to the exact same corresponding address on the Avalanche C chain. It looks very different, but it's derived from the same key. And so you are the one who's straddling both chains. There is no intermediary doing that for you. This is technically pretty cool, pretty deep, and it has cool ramifications. it sounds kind of like, yeah, that's nice, I guess. I mean, I think non-techies will not appreciate how cool that is, but we take advantage of this to straddle both chains and move the funds. It's pretty darn neat. And bottom line, this is a chain this is a bridge that I feel very comfortable using, and it had nothing common with any of the bridges that you have seen. We used to use, and I'm very familiar with the sort of traditional bridges that other people use. All these L2s, for example, use various bridges that are deeply insecure. And we used to use one of them, and just very fragile code, lots and lots of ways in which things would go south, very expensive, very slow. So I'm really proud. It's the bridge that we have built for Ethereum, the Ethereum to Avalanche bridge, is number one in terms of market share. It has the most amount of TVL in it, time tested now. It's it's about a year old now, and the Bitcoin bridge is based on the exact same technology, and I cannot wait to see the funds grow. I think on the first day there was about $3.3 million that came over. Second day, I think we reached 7.4. We'll see where it goes over the next few days. I think yesterday there was, it's only 2 days. The core wallet has only been out for 2 days. You needed to have the core wallet to use the bridge. Otherwise, it's very difficult to use if you try to do it manually or via some other means. But core wallet makes it super easy. And where was I going with this? So yesterday we had 250 transactions in through the bridge. 20 transactions out. People love, the speed of Avalanche. They come in and they like, of course, the DeFi Legos that they have available to them once they cross the chasm. There is no wrapper. There is nobody who can take the bitcoins away from you. There is no insider threat. It's not like WBTC at all. So WBTC relies on a custodian, and every time you have a custodian, then you have to worry. Who is this custodian? To whom you give your BTC, and they give you the wrapped asset, the WBTC. So they hold your BTC at one address, they control, and they give you the WBTC on your destination chain that you wanted. They are the in between, the intermediary. So therefore, they are under a lot of requirements. That's why the regulators take great interest in anybody who acts as a custodian. They have to be regulated. They have to do KYC AML on you. They themselves have to be well registered. You have to do checks on them, etc., etc. So with this new tool, you are the one straddling both chains. And so that is a pretty nice situation. There is essentially a smart contract in the middle that mediates access on both sides to the same key. So that's a very cool setup to have, and it's really, I think it's a joy to use. Check it out. Anyone can use it. It's all open and fairly easy to use with the introduction of the core wallet. So once you're on Avalanche, you can swap hundreds of Avalanche assets. I don't know why it says hundreds, there are more than hundreds, but whatever. As many assets as you could imagine. So this person is swapping PEFI for SNOB or what have you. So whatever you might want to do, you can. It's just all of the DeFi tools are available to you. The important thing is the swap operation is built into the wallet. So the swap is it's DeFi, it's happening on chain, happens super freaking fast. I bet you will think that somebody is operating this service. It's actually happening on chain with the help of Paraswap. Right, I think this is talking about how to provide liquidity. So you can put real dollars in your crypto wallet. Oh, no, this is not. It's not. This is talking about. It's not. I saw the word pool and my mind went elsewhere. This is talking about buying tokens. If you want to buy tokens, you can go through the wallet and just get some tokens. Makes it really easy. When you come over the bridge, we give you a little bit of AVAX to use as gas. And but if you needed more, you want to do other stuff, you want to buy some other, you want to buy AVAX and then swap it, etc. You can do it all from inside the wallet. It's powered by MoonPay. I believe you can use a credit card, and it's just super convenient. And this thing is comprehensive. It's not It's not just for AVAX coins, it's for all coins. Remember, I keep saying this, we are an digital asset creation platform. Okay, Avalanche is not a single chain. It's not about a single token. It's about enabling you and other people to create digital valuable assets. So, and with rules that go with them, with chains that go with them, and to do so in a compliant manner. So there's a lot to say about the value proposition of Avalanche. We're not competing with Ethereum. I keep saying this. I'll remind everyone again, we're not like everybody else out there, like doing whatever it is that they do, getting their vision from someone else. Okay, we have our own unique vision ever since day whenever the hell that was, probably when I first got into crypto by building Karma back in 2002. And that is to create valuable things online and to trade them around, transfer them around without the help of intermediaries. So there are many coins. They're all at the same sort of level of equivalence inside the wallet. We got AVAX in this wallet. We've got AVAX Aave that has been bridged over from Ethereum. This person has some Bitcoin. They've got some Chainlink, etc. So, and they also have, they might have stuff on the Swimmer network as well. So you can see everything you own across multiple subnets and networks. That's a really cool feature. You don't have to switch networks, etc., to get a big glimpse into everything you have. You can see your NFTs. I think I have a picture of this. Yeah, it's all inside the wallet. You don't have to go to somebody else's marketplace. You don't have to have a third party help you see what you've got. Don't have to do that stupid add token thing or anything else. This thing just knows what you've got and shows it to you the way a wallet should. And then you've got this activity tab as well. So if you want to look at what you did, then it has a summary of things that you've been up to. And it's really easy to install. Go install it. Go download it from the Chrome store and start checking out Avalanche. If you're new to DeFi, stick around. I'm going to be doing some explainers. I try to explain things in a fairly accessible manner. So we'll talk about all this stuff. And there is this thing is I'm proud of what we built. It's a new product. It's everything a wallet ought to be, and it's done by people who know what they're doing. So that's that. I'm running out of energy. It's around the 45-minute mark. I kind of get a little tired. So this slide is a reminder of, and the main reason why I'm running out of energy today is because I did a hell of a lot of talking over the last 3-4 days in Washington, D.C. I was down at the Capitol talking to lawmakers about some of the legislation they're about to draw that affects all of us. So it takes a lot of effort to make sure that we as a space do well. And if we turn our backs on legislators, if we turn our backs on the people who are trying to write the legal frameworks, the regulation for us, then they start thinking about things in funny ways, and they snap onto, there are all sorts of different cultural things at work as well. Like there's a group of people who hate crypto out there. They just are haters, and I understand where they're coming from. And I understand why. There are some political, money is inherently political, and early systems came to crypto from a very, very unique perspective, let's say, from a very concentrated perspective, and that put off some other folks. And so every now and then, people who can do better need to go and interact with the legislators and say, hey, you might be thinking about crypto the wrong way. Things that you're worried about, we can solve technologically, and things that you want to encode, we can actually help you encode into the fabric of the new rails we are building, and it would be good for everyone. So if instead of all these strange, crazy regulations, we could build rules into the very rule set that we want to enforce, one could do that. I would never do that for so the Avalanche C chain, but we can build compliant chains for assets that require compliance. And so if somebody wants to put Apple stock on a blockchain, we can do it for a designated special subnet with its own special rules. That was one of the exact reasons and motivations for the subnet architecture that we came up with. So I had a great time in DC, ended up talking to countless legislators, senators, and congressmen. I guess the high point was running into Senator Bernie Sanders. I ran into him at lunch. It was wonderful. And had some great dinners with people and so on. It's just been a blast talking to them. They turned out to be far more insightful than I thought they were. And they have a hard life. They end up having to regulate a hell of a lot of different things, like pork bellies and crypto are typically in the same bucket, commodities, right? So there are people out there with a pork belly background trying to make rules for the crypto space. And to their credit, they're wonderful. They work very, very hard, and they have an incredible staff typically who helps them with figuring out the nuances of the space. One of the main pushes that I had over there was to make sure that the definitions for crypto are correct. That is, the biggest fear I have right now when it comes to legislation is simple, that people new to this area, they just look at the list on Binance or what have you, and they think all of those things are the same. So that's just kind of disheartening. There's a big difference between a platform token and a fiat-backed stablecoin, algorithmic stablecoin. You know how those turn out. And of course, the DeFi tokens, governance tokens. Some governance tokens pay dividends. And there are all sorts of issues that make these tokens very different from each other. And of course, there's representations of real-world assets on crypto. When you have a security on a blockchain, of course, that's a security on a blockchain. It was always a security where it originated. Apple stock on a blockchain, it comes with Apple stock entanglements. It needs to be treated like it's Apple stock because it will move Apple stock. So that's sort of where at least I'm coming from, and I think it was eye-opening for me to see our sort of civics in action. It was amazing. It was eye-opening for me to meet these people, very hardworking people who are technically fairly sophisticated. And I had a couple of different messages, but my main message to them was, when drafting the legislation, it's very important to have the definitions correct so that we don't end up, applying Apple stock regulations to a Bored Ape. I think that just doesn't make sense. And everybody that I spoke to could see the value. And of course, these are not just one-time conversations. There has to be an ongoing conversation where, at the end of the day, they end up voting on a package of regulations or laws. They come as a bill typically, and those bills have to be drafted very, very carefully. And so I have been engaged as an academic before, and I plan to remain engaged in these processes in the future. I think it's very important for all of us thought leaders in this space to have a presence in Washington. So, but I came back quite enthusiastic about the outlook for regulation in crypto. So that's my one bit takeaway from my Washington trip. I was energized. People I spoke to were happy, reasonable, fun people, without exception. I spoke to the Blockchain Caucus as well, gave a presentation to them about crypto and where it's going. Just has been a blast overall. So I'm pretty happy about the shape of the future to come when it comes to legislation, also when it comes to crypto. Okay, so with my last remaining few sounds in my voice box here. So CEFI versus DeFi. Some crazy things happened last week. The Solend team, there's so much to say here. So here's what happened. Solend is a project on top of Solana, and I think it's some kind of a DeFi platform. Somebody put up some collateral, and those people are not there to defend the loan that they took out. So and if Solana's price drops below a certain level, this whale's position will get liquidated. And so everyone got freaked out. If they get liquidated, then it triggers a cascade of liquidations. And there was a fear, there's probably still a fear, that that cascade liquidation could cause the Solana price to hit zero. That's a bit of a problem. So what the Solend team decided to do was they decided to create a DAO in 24 hours. Just out of the blue, there's a DAO. And I don't know how they did the coin distribution, but we'll get to that in a second. And then before the DAO was a proposal that says grant emergency power to Solend Labs to temporarily take over the whale's account so that they can do a liquidation over the counter at a higher price than it would have taken place at, and avoid pushing Solana to its limits, avoid that cascade of liquidations. So there's so much to say about this. So first of all, there's something funny going on here. This team is saying, hey, if you push Solana, if you have something of high value happening on Solana, it might end up technically being outside the envelope of what Solana can handle. So I want to make a too big a point out of this. We always want to be somewhat as positive as we can, especially to Solana, which launched at a similar time frame as us. But if there are such limits, then it makes sense to me that the architects of that system need to come clear and say, here are the limits that you should not expect, that you should not exceed. So that's just basic ethics. So if that's not there, if there are no limits, if they're saying, hey, we can handle umpteen thousand transactions per second, and it's like they're doing their funny accounting to boost that number as high as possible. And then if that's what they're doing, then you can't do this. It's just that these two things don't go together. It's like it's not intellectually honest to say, hey, we can do a bazillion, gazillion, 1,000 million transactions per second. Oh, by the way, this is just one account, just single liquidation can trigger Solana to exceed its limits and stall again. So if that's the case, then let's hear it. Don't force us to say it. Don't get upset at us for saying that Solana has limits. If it's got limits, come clear and say what those limits are. Okay, so that's one. Two, these emergency powers. The whole point of DeFi and blockchains is that there are no third parties, that your assets are yours. I assure you I would not be in this space if behind the blockchain was some ability for some team to take over my funds. This is not a sham. You are directly damaging the entire value proposition of everything we stand for. Any kind of action like this, a sham DAO that's created in 24 hours. There was a single whale that came in and voted. 95% of the yes votes came from a single address. Who the heck is that? How did they get their tokens? So is it Solend Labs voting to give money to Solend Labs? Is that what's going on? How is this decentralized? What the D in the DAO? You guys should look it up. So this is all crazy. And if you do this, I mean, you can. It's possible to do, and they did it, right? So if you do this, you damage the rest of the space. I try really hard not to say anything negative about Solana, but when you guys go out and do this, then the rest of us have to distance ourselves. So we have to say we're not like them. I have to say this. You force us to have to say negative things. So anyhow, so these are all really bad. And I do hang out with a lot of social scientists, and they're not like us techs. They are far more, they got laser eyes. And I don't mean laser eyes in the sense we have them. I mean laser eyes when something happens, they try to look for what's the fundamental thing underneath this thing that caused this to happen. And if I apply my social science laser eyes to this, as weak as my lasers are, I think I see that on a chain where a lot of things are centralized, this might seem normal and even desirable. I think this is part of the ethos. And I was very dismayed to see all of this. And so they voted for this. It passed with the help of a single voter. And then I was very dismayed. And then something else happened that made me even more sad. So what was it that made me even more sad? They decided not to follow the outcome of the DAO, but to actually have another vote. And I don't know what to say about this. This is like crazy on top of crazy. It's crazy squared. So what the heck is a DAO? That you would have held that DAO as some kind of a shield in front of regulators. You would have said you're decentralized. You would have weakened our position, the rest of us in the space who are truly decentralized. You stole our words. You stole our narrative. You would have pretended to be decentralized. And now here you are doing this sham thing. You come up with the outcome, then you get a lot of pushback from people, then you don't like it, then you try to reverse the sham thing. This is absolutely horrendous. So I would hope, if anybody is listening from the Solana system, and I'm sure you are, that you go back and you try to fix this stuff up. This is terrible for the space. You're doing it a huge disservice. It damages everything we stand for. And the space has to police itself. When we see this kind of activity, we just have to say that is so wrong. And I don't know what else we can do. I don't know the Solana system well enough. Maybe the Solana chain could build a DAO and take away the funds from Solana team, give it to someone else. I'm just joking, of course. I'm not suggesting that. So some crazy stuff is happening over there. As I said, I've spent a whole year not criticizing anything about Solana. I actually feel the pain every time the Solana chain stops. I think about Anatoly and I think about how he might be taking it. So, it actually pains me. It's not good for us. These third generation chains, they have a lot of value, a lot of function. I'm a supporter in normal times. My public record bears this out. But when things like this happen, we have to put our foot down. This is not okay. Decentralization isn't a word you can Control-C, Control-V. You can't pull a Justin Sun here. You can't just use that word. You can't hide behind it. It's not your shield. You can't appropriate that term. You cannot build a sham and make our lives difficult for those of us who are truly decentralized. So that's my little rant. You kind of got carried away there. But anyway, so the bottom line here is I wrote something to describe what's going on. They tried to take over the position of this whale. This is like completely unacceptable stuff. This DGen helped me with some of the backstory. They gave their users less than 6 hours to vote. The votes are a sham. Vote outcomes are not binding. It's craziness. So this is not decentralized finance. I would hope that the Solana ecosystem can do better. I know they have some great people in it. So please do better, guys. This is completely unacceptable and it's hurting all of us. You reinvented TradFi. Is like I don't know what this is. This is like nationalization, and one of the main reasons why I came into this space. I come from a line of people who had to one day just leave everything behind, every single thing they owned, other than that which they could carry, and just migrate somewhere else. I'm sure many of you had to do the same thing. There are so many families out there that had to leave everything behind and go somewhere else. I remember my grandmother talking about the breakfast they left behind on the table. They left behind not just the breakfast, but obviously the plate it was in, the table it was on, the house it was in, the land it was on. All of that got left behind. And one of the huge appeals of crypto is that they're non-custodial. No one can take your assets away from you. And I know that my grandparents would have loved to take everything they owned on a USB stick. And so that was one of the big draws for me. This is not a joke. This is not a little bit, something that we kind of think is a cute feature, an optional add-on. This is the core of what draws people to this space. This is the fundamental value proposition. So you can't go out there usurping other people's tokens under any circumstance. And you cannot be pretending to be at the same table as the rest of us if you've got a system that does this. So shape up, guys, shape up. All right, so that's the state of crypto for, let me talk a little bit about the state of crypto. There's a bunch of things happening. We're talking about legislation. New York has a ban on mining. This is an issue that we see a little bit of in upstate New York, where I still live. I go back and forth. There's a lot of hydro dams over there. There's a lot of cheap electricity if you know how to tap into it. But as miners tap into it, it creates problems for the locals. So it's near Seneca Lake, which is one of the Finger Lakes. I live at one of the other Finger Lakes. So near there's a bunch of people who've been upset, and there's a ban on mining. People are upset that their power bills are going high because of cryptocurrency mining. We're going to see more and more of this, where people are upset at crypto for consuming a lot of electricity. So until a few years ago, proof of work was the best way I knew of building a decentralized system, of ensuring that anyone could join a system and maintain a secure wallet, a secure ledger rather. Proof of work was the best protocol, and everything else was limited in some way in the number of participants it could accommodate. That's no longer the case. We now have a protocol, and in fact, perhaps others are vying for protocols that can be decentralized and energy efficient. So we now know how to build better systems that consume far less energy. Just to give you an idea, Bitcoin consumes 3.6 million households worth of electricity. Ethereum consumes 1.4 million households worth of electricity. Those are huge numbers. Avalanche consumes 47 households worth of electricity. So we have better protocols now, I understand why the proof of work protocols exist. I'm not against them. I'm just for better technology. I want to be at the cutting edge of tech, and so these other solutions are incredibly decentralized. They hold the ability to be far more decentralized than mining-based currencies. Imagine how many people can do mining. It's very, very small. You need all the machinery, you need space, you need cooling, you need electricity, and compared to that, take a look at the number of people who can run a node. Anyone can run a node, and anyone can put up some capital. So the proof of stake protocols have the potential to be far more decentralized, just on that basis alone. And those protocols that allow that have efficient messaging can actually scale to large numbers of participants. Many others cannot. So Avalanche, I'm really proud of. And so I'm not against proof of work, but other people are feeling the heat from it, so to speak, and they're getting upset. And here's a message from another normie group, established group. This Bank of England came out. I don't know how much weight to put on any opinion issued by the Bank of England, but they are actually savvy when it comes to crypto, and they're doing a bunch of things. I've spoken to them a few times, and what I suspect they are going to do in the crypto space, let me just mention it here, is that they will come up with crypto APIs to a non-crypto backend as a first step towards digitalization of their currency. So that's a good step, and every baby step in the right direction helps. And you know how this happens. It happens very slowly at first, and all of a sudden and all at once. So suddenly they will see, oh, hey, I can do my government benefits in a much more efficient way. I can direct where money flows after I do some kind of a stimulus package, et cetera, et cetera. Or I can do my accounting with the global ledger far better. And they suddenly will see the value and will shift to a digital currency. That's an aside. Going back to what Bank of England said, they were pointing out that the bear market is a temporary phenomena, that the survivors of the rout in crypto assets could become the technology companies of the future, rivaling Amazon and eBay and others. They are spot on. That's exactly what's going to happen. I love this bear market. It ended up shaking out some of the weak players. And in general, in a bull market, everybody makes the same noise. Everybody claims the same stuff. My narrative has been stolen by so many people. Right? I mean, we just had an episode where I harkened back to another one. Everybody makes it. They say the same thing. Oh, new protocol. Not really. A hell of a lot of you guys are just reinventing the same damn protocol. Right? It's got some features. Like you take a hat, you put a feather on it. That's not a new hat. It's a hat with a feather on it. Okay, so it's not novel. It's just a hat. You added flair to it. So there are lots of protocols out there that are just flares on signature collection. You collected some signatures. Whoop-de-doo. Right? Took you 6 years. Okay, good, nice. I hope you've completed. Can't wait for it to get launched. So that's great. And but in a bull market, they get listed side by side as everybody else who's actually innovating. And then you just kind of have to sit there and take it, and you watch them take off, and et cetera, et cetera. In a bear market, though, it's very clear who's innovating and which systems are falling behind. So when at the end of the bear, these are market cycles, they come and go. At the end of the bear, I think the ones that survived, that did their treasury management correctly, that did their community management correctly, and that kept on innovating are going to be the ones at the forefront of a new wave of technology, because the next wave is not going to be a little like dabbling here, dabbling there. all of the big players are itching to go in, and the legislative infrastructure is being built for them to come. And I am super excited about what the future holds for us. So on that note, I'm going to end. I guess, crypto will eat Wall Street, then it will eat the world. That's I think a part comes from my tweet the other day, and we are striving to build a system that's capable of absorbing the growth that's going to happen. So hope you have a great weekend. I am back from DC. I'm going to rest my voice a little bit. I spoke a little too much, both there and also here today. And but long story short, I am very, very, very excited about what's about to come. Do check out Core Wallet. It's got some really cool features, and it lets you do things that you cannot do anywhere else. Have a great weekend. Take care.